Well, in response to your first question, as regards the major challenges that the state face to monitor their performance in economic, social and cultural rights, I would say the answer is threefold. A, it's statistical data and the indicators that are presented by states parties and by civil society actors often are taken for other things than the human rights focus, and therefore it creates a difficulty. But that can be overcome, of course. Secondly, the committee is most interested in disaggregation of the data that the state party provides. The state party just gives a sort of one moment picture, and that one moment picture may be good and correct, but we cannot criticize because we don't know, has there been an improvement or have there been negative developments, and therefore we need the figures and data on a year-by-year basis throughout the reporting cycle to be meaningful, so that when we say why has there been an increase in the number of illiterate people, or why has there been a decrease, such a drastic decrease in the maternal death rate, can you give explanation, things like that, then a meaningful assessment can take place, and the questions and answers will be much more focused. And thirdly, the relations with non-governmental organizations and national human rights institutions. That's a big challenge, how the state party will deal with them. Very often the reports are just drawn up by the government departments in private, and they avoid close contacts with the NGOs. Of course, ultimately the report has to be written by the government department, and it alone is responsible for it. But in the process of writing up the report, more space should be devoted in engaging the national human rights institutions and national and international NGOs that are prepared to offer advice on how to deal with certain issues. Well, all I can say, very briefly, they are hugely relevant, the input from NGOs like CESCR and many others. In fact, they're invaluable. Without the input from the non-governmental organization, from civil society generally, the committee members could not do their job properly, because the government reports will have the tendency to say everything is fine, and the real situation, the analysis of the real situation, needs alternative or parallel reports from civil society organizations, and they're particularly good if they're collective alternative reports, because then 20 or 30 or even more NGOs get together and give evidence-based data and issues which the committee members then can regard as a counter picture to that of the government. It doesn't mean that the committee will automatically accept what the parallel report says, but it will enable it to have a better assessment, overall assessment of the performance of the state party. And it's truly invaluable, and that should continue the way it is. I can say two things. The working methods of the committee will have to change radically and completely. Now, when it enters into force, the optional protocol allowing for individual communications and of individuals and groups of individuals, it'll take some time before the first cases will come up. Why? Because the complainants will first have to exhaust local remedies. But once they come to the committee, the committee will have to change its work methods. To have 18 members from all over the world sitting in plenary is a luxury we can no longer afford. So the working methods will have to change drastically. Maybe a chamber system or working groups. The country rapporteur's role will have to be increased, and the plenary only signing off what the country rapporteur recommends, unless they have very different views on it. Of course, at all time the plenary can call back and say, no, we want to take a different position on it. But the roles of country rapporteurs and also of follow-up rapporteurs will increase enormously. The increase in the number of reports with less time for each state party will be dramatic. So far we've had to deal with 5 countries per session, usually 1 from each world region. By the end of this year, it'll be 7 or 8 countries, the 8th being a non-reporting state, because we have so many states that have never reported. So that needs to be done. So that is another pressure to change the modalities of work. Moreover, with 8 countries, the time available for each dialogue with states party will be reduced by 1/3 at least, and that may affect the quality of the in-depth questioning, but not necessarily, because other committees have done so and the quality did not decrease. But there is a big danger unless a change of mind, of attitude amongst committee members will actually take place. But I'm optimistic that the challenge will be met. And secondly, learning to deal with complaints from individuals and groups of individuals will be quite a new experience for the committee members. They were elected when there was only state reporting, and state reporting procedure and monitoring is very different. Macro issues, micro issues, and on dealing with individual complaints, whether a forced eviction on an individual case was legitimate, candidate is in line with the covenant obligation, admissibility criteria and substance criteria, merits criteria will have to be looked at, which is a very technical but very, very important thing. Of course, there is the help of the secretariats of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights on it, but a lot will depend on restructuring the work of the committee on this. So learning to deal with individual complaints and from groups of individuals will be very, very important, and how to strategically place the recommendations, the so-called views in the communications in relation to the state reporting procedure, and how future general comments will look like, because individual cases can be brought home much more easily in the national press and television and the mass media than very complex state reporting issues which are never reported on, and they just go back in the government departments and go in a cupboard until the next report is due. So to change that philosophy will be very, very important, and I'm really confident that we will reach the 10 states necessary for the optional protocol to enter into force to happen within the next couple of months.